Deconverted Man here. Alright, time to do one of these live things because, I don't know, see what happens. So, I titled this Deconverted Man Saves the World. Seems like a simple task. Basically, it's going to be me complaining about things and saying how we could fix it, but why that solution makes too much sense, and so we won't do it. Alright, there's a lot to cover, obviously, because there's a lot of different problems in the world. I don't even know where to start. I'll just start with the thing I saw recently, which has been on and off. I've seen this, but the legalization of all drugs, not just some, but every single one of them. And at least one country has tried this with some success. Not the crime dropped, the amount of people using dropped, and all in all, it seemed to be a good idea. All right. Obviously, the war on drugs hasn't worked here in the United States. I can't really speak to other countries. So, I don't know that much about them. But it seems to me that outlawing all drugs has not led to the outcome of getting rid of them, if that was indeed the desired outcome in the first place. Of course, you have conspiracy theorists to say, that's not really the outcome they ever wanted in the first place. I'm not going to bother with that. All I know is it doesn't work. Prohibition didn't work. This isn't working. It's time to give up, right? Well, why aren't we giving up? Because that would make too much sense. All right, so how do we fix that? Well, legalize, right? That seems like a straightforward solution. It's almost too easy, so of course we're not going to do that. Now, legalizing overnight, that would be a bad idea. You need to have some sort of preparation time. I don't know, say like at the end of the year, the government will legalize all drugs, every single one of them. You no longer need a prescription to get any and all drug. And also at that time, we're going to be selling them ourselves. The government will sell them at bottom of the barrel prices, at a no profit margin kind of thing, and we're going to sell them. We're going to make them as safe as possible. That's why we're giving ourselves at least a year. Maybe we want to give ourselves a little bit more time to work on the safety things. But on the labels, we'll say, what it is, what it does, what its side effects are. Don't buy this. Don't use this. It will probably kill you. And here's a number and a website that you can visit for more information and to get help with your addiction. All the money that we're spending on police and FBI and CIA and whatever the bleep else we throw it at to stop the drugs going in can go towards these programs to get people off of drugs, to stay off of drugs, to educate people about what they are, what they do. And a lot of people that are on prescription medicine, this might even make those prices go down. Let's say serotonin or serotonin, however you want to pronounce this. I'm not going to pronounce drug names correctly. It's like, okay, that's depression. That's for depression. If you've heard of Zoloft, that's what this is, okay? Well, if the government was selling it at the lowest price possible to sell it at, said, okay, this is for depression, but these are the possible side effects, and don't use this without consulting your doctor. Now, people are going to, even though you put the warning label on there, they're going to do it. Just like, there's warning labels on cigarettes, people still do it. You could put, the death symbol on there, and people would still get it, which, funny enough, they tried to do that a couple different times where they tried to get, like, the skull symbol on cigarettes, and, the tobacco company would have none of that. Well, if the government was selling nicotine at bottom of the barrel prices and tobacco at bottom of the barrel prices, you could pick it up on the shelf, pharmacies or drugstores or whatever. Maybe you wouldn't buy that $12, $13, was it $20 now? I don't know. It's a good amount of money now that you're wasting on a cigarette carton or even a pack or whatever. So why not do that? Well, because it would make too much sense, of course. Yeah, would there be ramifications? Would it make things worse? I don't know. The data of the one and only data point that we have on it suggests that the outcome would be good. Now we need better data, obviously, but you you don't have that. So maybe the smarter way to go about it would be to try it in a limited area. So we're going to try it in this small city, then we're going to, a small town, then a city, then a state, and then we're going to spread it slowly. But my thought is on anything that seems too simple is it's just we're not going to do it. And by we I mean, whoever's in charge of this sort of stuff. It's just too easy of a path to take. Therefore, we're not going to do it because reasons. Uh, People have ethical / moral. Oh well, it's bad. It's bad. Yeah, it's bad, but people are going to do it. And if you instead of saying you can't do it because doing it makes you a criminal, say go ahead and do it. Now we know that you're an addict. Now that we know that you're a drug user, we know that we can get you treatment because it is an addictive disease like other addictive diseases out there. We failed with prohibition. We failed with the drug war. It's the same thing. Oh well. Well, maybe it's not the same. It's close enough. All right. What about jail? Last I knew, America was the #1 incarcerator. Period. The land of the free. Now with more inmates per capita than anybody in the world. Good job. How did it become that way? Doesn't matter. What are we doing about it? Nothing. Diddly and squat is what we're doing about it. Why? A lot of reasons, but the main one that I can see is it generates money. Having people in prison creates a population of people that you can pay nothing, basically. You can pay them point pennies on the dollar and get them to do labor. And they'll do it because they want money. And so you're getting free labor, essentially. You're getting very, very cheap labor, slave labor. They can't go anywhere. You know that they're there for a long time. You know that if they quit, there's another person right next to them that will gladly take that job. So retention is extremely high. Cost benefit analysis of it is, these places are making hand over fist money. So once it's become a corporation and people can make money off of it, well, why do anything to change that? So what if, and these people are looked at like, well, they're criminals. They did something horrible. So who cares what happens to them? Well, I'm sure their friends and families do, but by and large, whatever noise they're making isn't enough to be noticed, and nobody really seems to care. It's funny that you've got the social justice warrior freaks out there that pretend to care so much about marginalized groups. Of course they don't, but they pretend to, and they don't seem to really be making any noise about, the criminal population. Maybe that will be next on their, things of people that we pretend to care about. But I think that I think they won't. This kind of a tangent, but I think they won't because it would be obvious that they're not doing anything or making any progress. So they have to go after groups that it doesn't seem obvious that they're not making any progress. All right, so the prison system in itself, the punishment idea, I think we need to just change that. We have this weird, odd sense of justice, and I don't know where that started or how it came to be, but it's something that we've had a long time. People would be hung or guillotined or shot or what have you as some sort of punishment. Or people would, be placed in jail. When did this start? Penal, this idea of a penitentiary, that you'll be required to give penance for your crimes or sins, and that admitting that you were bad would somehow make you a better person. But it never paid off. You've got things like the Scarlet Letter, which are essentially a failed human experiment where okay, we're going to put this letter on you that identifies you as somebody that's done something wrong, and nobody's supposed to really hang out with you. And it doesn't stop people from doing that. There was a documentary on PBS, oh, goodness, years ago, and it was one of these frontier sort of town experiments where they put people in a certain time period and they have them live that lifestyle. And in this one, when the pastor became like mayor of the town, his wife basically got him to do the Scarlet Letter stuff. If anyone wants additional information about that, just remind me, and I'll find it and I'll put it in the links comment section somewhere. But yeah, and I'll put it in the description of the video if you really want to know about it. But you have to remind me, otherwise I probably won't remember to do it on my own. But it failed because another person was like, "Well, I'm going to do that." You know, they didn't want to go to church on Sunday. It's like, look, we're not living back then. We're living now. And even if we were living back then, we might not want to go to church on Sunday. Well, if you were living back then, they might have just killed you for not going to church on Sunday. But them marking the first person with the Scarlet Letter didn't work because another person joined in. And I'm surprised it didn't completely collapse the entire thing, but it certainly did demoralize everyone else and demotivate them. So at the end, the judges that said, "Here's how well you did," judged it a failure for multiple reasons. But they weren't able to produce the amount of food that they should have. Well, because they didn't have the full workforce, and they weren't really They were so concerned about the religion stuff that they weren't doing the food stuff, so they failed. And if it had been real life, they would have died off. So maybe that's why we don't do that anymore. But with money involved, there's money to feed into the system, and then the system feeds into the money, so it doesn't naturally die off like it should, unless you have something that comes along and does a similar function better and for less money initially and makes more money at the end, which you can only do if you restructure all of it. So you have rehabilitation programs instead of prison. You don't go to jail. You go to a rehabilitation center. You don't lose your ability to work. You don't get labeled as the bad guy or a gal, or however you want to put that. Instead, you're labeled as somebody who made a mistake. If anything, maybe you're not even labeled at all. You just go to therapy, you go to the rehabilitation, and whatever it was that caused that. But then that person becomes a more productive member of society, and that's where the profit comes from. But that's not direct, so we're not going to do that. Makes too much sense because we don't really care about the human. We care about the money. Okay, well, maybe then it's capitalism is to blame. Money's to blame. Money's to blame. Well, I saw a video that talked about a capitalist, and he had this little, it was like a minute-long video where he does an analogy, and the whole thing is an argument to from analogy. The argument is an analogy. And it has this guy that's chilling out in his boat, and the guy comes along and says, what are you doing? You could be fishing right now and making even more money, and once you have enough money like I do, then you'll be happy and enjoy life. He's like, I'm enjoying life right now. And everyone's like, yay, happy story. And I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. He's got all this money. He could hire a ton of people to go fishing and provide all these jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And then, of course, somebody came along and then flipped that and said, no, but then he hires, people that are illegal immigrants so he can pay them less. So actually he puts all these people out of work. Well, you can go either way with that story. And that's the thing. It's a story. So money can be good and money can be bad. And what's weird about it is if you have a lot of it, you can do a lot of things with it, or you can do nothing at all with it, or you can do somewhere in between. You can accumulate goods, which only really, it helps somebody because somebody got paid for the good that you acquired. but then that's the end of it, unless you're renting it, obviously. But once you buy that thing, that's it. That money is gone now. So, you buy the pot helped the person that made that pot, and to some degree helped the shopkeeper that sold the pot to some degree, and so on and so forth. And so, yeah, it helped a lot of people indirectly, but then that's the end of it. Unless you're always doing the same thing, you're always buying more pots from that particular store, you're not doing something that's going to benefit you could do it in a different way. Instead, you could hire a lot of people to do specific jobs, and that would benefit a lot of people. Or you could donate to charities that then might be able to use your money to plus other people's money to do even more than you could on your own. And there's all sorts of ways that you could look at that. And what's weird about it is, before we had money, we had just the barter system, which didn't really seem to pay off or work very well, because like, okay, this loaf of bread, what's it worth? Well, what's it worth to me? It's worth, that piece of leather that I can use to cover my house, for example. But that piece of leather might not be worth one loaf of bread to you. It might, so it didn't really work. But even though we have capitalism, we have this money thing, it still doesn't always seem to work in every case. Somebody that I'm kind of a fan of, I saw that they could draw well. And, it just takes practice to draw well. It's apparently not really something, well, maybe you're born really good drawing, but you can become a great drawer if you practice. At least that's what I've heard and been told and read, so it's got to be true. But at any rate, they wanted $50 to draw a picture for me, and I'm like, yeah, you're not that good. I didn't say that, but I was like, no, it's not that good. For them, it's worth $50 because it's like, well, I'm looking at the time that I'm investing into it, and that's how much I'm going to charge. Well, that's fine and dandy, but it's not. What you produce is not worth $50 to me, and the amount of time that you spend into it is not relevant to me, because all I want is the outcome matters, and yada yada. Well, and that's how it goes. And it's like, well, if you're really good, you can charge a really extraordinary amount. Well, if you're really good, depends who you ask. Is the Mona Lisa really priceless? I don't. Some people say so. Some people say no. It's just another painting. It doesn't. The theme of it is what makes it valuable. The uniqueness of it is the fact that we said it's valuable, like gold. It's like, hey, that's rare, so it's valuable. Well, yeah, it's kind of rare, but not as rare as really. It kind of is rare, but we said it had value, so it does. Diamonds definitely aren't that rare. But there's this whole thing about, how diamonds became worth what they are now and all that. And it's like, they're really not that uncommon. It's just to make them look certain ways is a difficult process. And so that's what gives them the value. What really gives them value is that we decide that they had value. Let's say we found a comet that was made out of diamonds, and they all looked beautiful. Then that would drive down the price of diamond, wouldn't it? Well, maybe. I don't know. It depends. So it's weird. If you are a single doctor and you can see, let's say, 5 people in a day before you're worn out and you can't work anymore. But another doctor can see 6 people in a day without getting worn out. Well, then the other doctor did more than the first, so they should get a little bit more for that. Whether we're just giving them food for their effort or shelter or whatever it is that we're giving them, we tend to want to reward those who can and do more with more. But is this reward incentive, is that the way to go? And we've decided that yes. And Star Trek, of course, has the idea that we would all just work for free, and we would all work for the benefit of ourselves and humanity as a whole. I'm not sure how that would work, or if it would work, or if you have somebody that just kicks back and says, yeah, I don't want to do diddly or squat. Maybe you would. People really fear that. It's like, well, there's going to be somebody that's going to be lazy and not want to do anything. Maybe, but most people want to do something because you get bored otherwise. Well, what about playing video games? You can do that for a living. YouTube's proven that, and their video games competitions. So that can be a living. But not everybody wants to make it into a living, and not everybody's going to be able to make it into a living, even if society was changed for that. So the economy and the way that money works and all that is not an easy problem. So we can't fix that because it's too complicated to fix. See, I went the other way. It's not an easy fix, it's a difficult fix, and I don't have the solution. But I think that I like the idea that there should or ought to be some way to convince us to work and do things that we don't really want to do for the benefit of ourselves and humanity. But then you also look at the fact that we could get rid of most of the jobs that nobody wants to do with automation, if not today, then maybe tomorrow. And it's like, well, on the one hand, that's going to put a lot of people out of work, but on the other hand, then yeah, well, no, there is no other hand yet. But let's pretend that we didn't have money to motivate people. It was something else. Then people will be like, yeah, let's get rid of that job that, cleaning the water. I don't want to do that. Put robots on the task. Let them do it. Okay, great. I'll maintain the robots. No problem. I don't, that's less risky and less dirty than going down in the sewers and doing whatever I have to do down there. And every now and then some poor schmuck's going to have to go and do that, I guess, because something's going to go wrong and it's going to require a human to fix it, unless you have really good robots or whatever. But even then, and you always seem to need a human at some point theoretically. But there is a situation where the way that money works and motivates people, and I question it, and I go, really? I mean, you see a corporation, they're so cold towards people because they care about money. They don't care about people. They don't care about you. You don't matter. Money matters because money makes it go, and without money, it doesn't exist. And so the corporation isn't a person. It's not even an entity. It's this concept, but it's a concept that exists because it can't not exist in the sort of situation that we made it exist in. Problem's too complex to just go, oh, well, here's a solution, because there's not going to be one solution for it. There might be several, but whatever those are, well, are we even going to get to address them because we have all these other problems to deal with? Ugh. Well, what about war? What is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Well, here's another weird thing with war. There's a lot of things that you could say cause war. You could say religion causes war. Yes. You could say faith causes war. Yes. You could say greed causes war. Yes. Basic competition can cause war. What is it that's so precious about a piece of dirt that we're willing to die over it? I can't help but think of whenever I think about war, I think about the dome of the Dome of the Rock, or the Rock on the Dome, or however you want to put it, where both the Jews and the Islam people, they both think it's sacred, and you can't take it away from the Islamists because they'll go to war. The Jews really want it back, but they can't really do anything about it because they don't want to go to war. They know that they would, more than likely lose that war. And even if they didn't, I suspect that they kind of go, well, even though we think it's holy, it's really not worth dying over. Maybe some of them do, but not enough of them to go to war over it. But I kind of go, well, what if you drilled around that area with a laser beam and just sucked that whole part of the earth out, and said, okay, here's all that land, and now it's in outer space, and all that's left is like just the core of the earth itself or whatever. Like, how far down does that claim go? Like, if we dug, 20 miles deep and put a building below that building, would that still be sacred land? What about the air above it? If we have a hot air balloon constantly overhead, is that on sacred land? What what makes that yours? And so if we did that, we took the section of Earth out and said, okay, now you literally have nothing to fight over. Would they fight over the dirt that's now in orbit? I mean, what would they do? Would they go, well, I guess we have to fill it in with other dirt so that we have, because that area, that hole that's there is sacred. It'd be like claiming a black hole singularity was sacred. Yeah, do you see that region of space that nothing can come out of? that's holy. Nobody better claim that. That's ours. And somebody else, no, that's our sacred holy black hole. What is it you're fighting over? But yet we have this ownership of where we are. Even now, when we were nomadic, I mean the human race, when the human race was nomadic and moving from place to place, I guess that feeling was less because where you were was very temporary. So your land was constantly moving. And so your hunting ground also moves. So yes, it might be the case that today that's our hunting ground, and so we want to chase away any predators or other humans that want to use it because we want it. We were here first. We claim dibs. So there might have been some initial sort of ownership back then, but it just deepened as we settled in to solid stationary villages and huts, for better or for worse. So is any of that solvable? I don't know. Because if we evolved to desire things, that we evolved not to just desire things, but we evolved this sense of ownership. Like this house that I am now in, the location that I am in, that's my place. Even if I'm just renting it, it's mine. And you're not allowed to mess with it because it's mine. And so I wonder, even if we took away the idea of money and so that you could just go to any, let's say every place that you could live looked exactly the same. And they were all on the same level of the street. It was uniform across the board. There was literally nowhere that you could be that had any difference than anyone else. Of course, that's impossible, but let's just pretend, okay? Even then, you would still have something that you would call yours, more than likely. And you can't just get people to stop doing that if we evolve that need. So we'd have to unevolve that need somehow. That's too hard of a thing to solve. So we're not going to solve that one. All right, what about politics? Oh, politics. Oh, man. I don't even know where to start. It's a mess. What I know is that it feels like and seems like the system fails and sucks and doesn't work. Unless it sort of kind of does. But it's like, well, when does it work? When, it's like, it always feels like, okay, like if you owe the bank money, you have to pay them money. That's the end of it. If they owe you money, you won't see that for months, right? And it's that kind of way with the government, where it's like, if the government's supposed to do something to help you, you won't see that for years. But if you're supposed to do something for them, oh, you better do that yesterday because we're coming for you right now, kind of thing. And I guess that's sort of the impression, but I don't know if that's really the reality of it, but it does seem like that. people focus a lot on the president and blame them for all the woes. It's like there's other people in there. There's other people to blame, but I guess that's the focus point that's the easiest to point your finger at, right? It's like name a congressperson. Oh man, forget about it. I don't know who's in Congress. Name a senator. Name your state senator. Well, geez, I wonder how many people in America can do that. Which goes then to education. Oh, what's the thing on politics? Politics sucks. I don't know what to do to fix it. So we're not going to do it because it's too complicated. There you go. Education is broken. It hasn't really changed since we came up with it. And one thing I did learn about it that I still find interesting to today is that the reason it's a law for kids to go to school has nothing to do with caring about kids and education. It has everything to do with unions. Now, unions may or may not be bad. Don't know. Don't have any view one way or the other on that. But because I don't want the unions to be on my bad side. But hey, they're good. They're good. All unions are good. In case anyone, But well, they might be. I don't know. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're bad. Just like anything else, right? But they said, look, the kids are competition with us. You can give them less money, and that's not good. So that has to stop. So they basically got it to be a law that kids have to go to school so that they wouldn't have that competition. Well, flash forward to today, and I wonder how many unions are trying to make it impossible for companies to outsource jobs. Because it's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, yeah, you know that your clothing is made or your toys are made by, kids, overseas somewhere. And you're like, yeah, I know that, but what am I going to do about it? It's cheaper than if I buy made in America. Well, yeah, it is. And it saves the company money. So that's what they're going to do. And that's the end of that. So where's the union to say no to that? Well, maybe they've tried and they failed. I don't know. Maybe they're still trying. I don't know. But it might be that it's less of a pressing problem than the kids were, because that was direct labor. And then you're seeing another change, which is not just outsourcing, but more and more automation, which might be good, might be bad. As I mentioned before, it's like, well, it is good if we can get rid of these dangerous, yucky jobs that nobody really wants to do, but somebody has to do it. And because it is a yucky, dangerous job, we're obviously going to pay more for it to try to get people to do it, because otherwise they're not going to do it unless you can convince people to do it for little to no money, and you can get away with paying them that and they'll accept that because they'd rather have something than nothing. So it's this issue of, in education, the whole reason for not making it better or changing it is nebulous. We always hear about it, well, we're going to have no kid left behind. That didn't work. Change the testing standards. That didn't work. And the solution's already been pointed out by people. Schools don't teach you anything that you really need to know, at least in terms of how to adult. You don't learn how to balance your checkbook. You don't learn how to do taxes. You don't learn how to vote or what voting is. You don't learn how to get a house or an apartment or what a mortgage is or what rent payments are, or what what to expect in a contract. You don't learn about mental health problems and how to deal with them and recognize them in others so that you can do something. You don't learn the stuff that you should learn, because we leave all that up to the parents who don't know how to do it either. Ethics should be taught in school, I think, for sure. Absolutely, ethics should be taught. Critical thinking, critical analysis, informal logic, and logic should be taught. Sciences or the philosophy of science at least, should be taught. But the thing that needs to be taught is how to be an adult, how to negotiate the world that you're going to find yourself in. Now, obviously, that's kind of difficult because by the time they become an adult, it might have changed. But you teach the best way that you know how of here's how it is now, here's how it's changed, and here's what we think it might look like by the time you get there. So that the kid like me, when I was a kid, I would always ask, why are we learning this? This is pointless. What good is this going to do? And there's no answer because the answer is it's not. Now, math, basic math, well, yeah, that's good. But now everybody carries around a calculator with them everywhere they go, just about, right? Well, we've got to rethink all that stuff. We should teach how to be social. I think that comes with the ethical teaching, but what I mean by that is the whole bully situation and that, and people that grow up to be bullies and don't even know that they're bullies anymore. And I think you know who I'm talking about. You can think of one or two people like this. You know, you might have heard them protesting against free speech or something. These are not adults. These are kids that didn't learn how to be an adult. That's what needs to change. Well, are we going to change it? No. Why? Well, it's because it would make too much sense on one hand. On the other hand, it's hard to change things. And all these other things, like the politics, those affect it, and money and economy and all that weaves together to make these things, even though they seem easy to fix, impossible to fix. I remember I briefly was kind of forming my own in-school government. And the goal was to change the way that the students were treated by the school. And I had direct talk to the principal, although she wasn't really called the principal, but she was the main leader of the school, although there were several principals, but she was the main one. And I also had direct access to one of the people that was in charge of the school district. And I wish I knew now what back then, because I would have, but I didn't, because I was a kid and I didn't know anything. But, you know, or I knew far less at any rate. But what I came to learn through that process of, well, this is what people don't like, and this is yada yada. It's like, well, we can't change that. Why not? Because we're not allowed. And I would talk to the next gal up, and I'd be like, well, why not? And she'd be like, well, here's why. It's against the law. Why? I don't know. And I found out that there's a group of people who meet, and not all of them are parents. In fact, very few of them are parents, and they make a lot of the policy choices for the schools. And I'm like, they're not qualified to do that. They don't even have kids in school. What are you doing? What? And, there you go. There's the politics. My mom, who has a degree in English, ran for a position in the education board. Lost against the guy that's been there for however long he's been in there, who didn't have any degree, as far as I knew, in anything. And it's like, so you're going to pick somebody just because he's been there a while versus somebody that actually knows something about education? I mean, what? It's like, well, but he knows what to do. He knows what the job is about. Oh, because somebody new can't learn that, right? It doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is. Oh, saving the world. All right, world problem. I think I died. I lied. Okay, my computer froze. Panicked. We're back. Okay. Saving the world. There's two things, maybe more, but two that I want to focus on. Then I'll end this insanity and see how many people I lose in subs or gain from this. I lost some people subscribe. Okay, I'm going to complain about that. Then I'm going to go into the next thing. A lot of people during my pagan celebrations thing, the Easter video, I guess that they saw the name of the video and they just unsubscribed me for that reason alone. I don't know. They didn't tell me. Oh well, whatever. Who cares? Let's fix the world, not my problems that are nothing. Global climate change, global warming, and the other is freedom in general and free speech in particular. And I don't know which one of these is more important. I kind of want to say, well, obviously the environment, because if we're dead, it's not really going to matter what's going on, is it? And it's not like we don't have the solution already. It's just a matter of doing something with it. Here's what really bothers me with the global warming. We know, absolutely know, it's absolutely true. Climate change is absolutely real. We're screwing ourselves in the environment at an accelerating rate. We absolutely know this. Scientists absolutely know this. Anybody that has any sort of decent ability to reason and logic and isn't into conspiracy nonsense knows that this is true. We have overwhelming data, facts, and arguments that are logically coherent arguments, and we have repeatable tests. We have the empirical evidence. We have everything that you would want and then some, and people deny it because reasons. That troubles me. What troubles me even more is somebody like, and I'm going to say a name that not everybody's going to like, so please hold on to your hands. Thunderfoot. Oh, no, not him. He debunks the solar roadway because it doesn't make any freaking sense. And somebody calls him, a corporate oil shill or whatever. It's like, no, he's not saying that solar is bad, you nimwit. He's saying use it in a way that makes sense. He's not even saying any. He's not, But he says in the same video, if you had the solar panel right next to the road on a pole and you had it face the direction of the sun automatically, which you can do, that would produce more energy. So you spend the same amount that you would spend on the solar roadway on solar panels alongside of the road that tilt automatically to face the sun, multiple of them. Well, why not do that? Where's all the funding pouring in for that? That would be an actual solution that actually works, that actually does something. But that makes too much sense, so we're not going to do that. So the dumb solution that doesn't actually work is going to get the money, and those that debunk it are going to be called oil promoters, even though they may or may not be pro or anti-oil or whatever other energy. But obviously, whatever. I mean, it's stupid, but there you have it. Well, I guess you could say about that guy as well. He's pro-nuclear, so that's bad. Well, if we had, I've driven miles and miles of road where there's nothing, trees, which is nice, great. I love trees. But I mean, in the middle spot, there's nothing. And it's like, there, you could put solar panels there all the way down, and you could have wires, and it would cost a bit to do all that. Wouldn't cost too much to maintain it, or any more than we already spend on stuff like that anyways. And the amount that you get back for it, it would pay for itself. But maybe the energy companies don't want it because conspiracy or whatever. I don't know. But it's too easy of a solution. You've got some states that give you money back for if you install solar on your house. But it has to be your house. You have to own it. There needs to be some sort of incentive made for renters to do this as well. Property owners need some sort of incentive because they won't do it unless it's, going to affect the amount of money that they make. So what you do is you say, okay, let's say you own a trailer home park. You own it outright. You own it. We will give you X amount tax break if you install solar panels on all of the trailers. Okay. Well, duh, I want that tax break. So yeah, I'm going to do it. And as long as the cost of doing it is less than the amount that I'm going to get back from the tax break, then I'm going to do it. Or you just say, you know what? We're going to do it for everyone. We're not even going to wait for anyone to do it themselves. The government will just do it for everybody. We'll just put it in whether you want it or not. We're going to come, to 2 months notice. We're going to install solar panels on your roofs. Okay, well, I rent here, so I can't say no. And you say to the person that owns the place, yeah, if you say no, that we can't do this to your property, we own your property. And then they say, okay, well, go ahead. Because, maybe you offer them something, though. I'm just saying that would be more sensical than going the totalitarian route and forcing people to do it, maybe. But whatever works, we've got to do it. And it's not impossible. And if every place had solar on their roofs that could aim itself at the sun, that would be far, 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 or no energy that we would need from oil or coal or whatever. Well, that would ruin, all the coal miners' jobs. Well, Lottie freaking da. Train them to be solar panel people. How about that? Or wind power people. Oh, well, that's hard. Yeah, it's hard, but let's do it because we have to do it. Or we won't be here. Humanity will die out. And we're taking too long to go into space and do all that for that to be any sort of hope for salvation for humanity. Okay. Next problem, freedom in general, freedom of speech in particular. Yeah, that's another big one. And we've got all these people protesting freedom of speech. We've got people protesting when somebody speaks. Oh no, they're gonna say something. I need to stop them from saying words. Oh my word. How did we get here? And now that we're here, how do we stop this insanity? Because if you can't reason with somebody, then there's only one other recourse, and it's violence. And that means war. That's what it means. It means war of some sort. And we've seen, little by little, we've seen that pushback. We've seen the cops be, you know what, we're not even going to bother. We're going to let them sort it out for themselves. And that is kind of scary, but you kind of understand it because, yeah, forget about it. They're doing this to themselves. Let them figure it out. The cowards will run away because they are cowards. These people that are protesting freedom of speech are cowards. They don't have the mentality to stand toe-to-toe with someone and debate because, goodness forbid, we resolve issues by logical discourse. That's why I have no sympathy, no pity for those cowards on YouTube who won't debate what they promote. It's like, oh, you're nothing. You are intellectually bankrupt. They don't allow comments or they disable their ratings or a combination thereof. They're a coward. They don't want to debate. They're a coward. Period. They're not just a coward, but they're intellectually bankrupt. And whatever their argument is, obviously can't withstand critical analysis, critical scrutiny. Otherwise, they'd be like, bring it on, debate me. But okay. Sidetrack. But freedom is absolutely worth dying for. We've died for it before in the past. Probably going to die for it again. And I say, if we're not all over this freedom of speech thing, I don't understand why everybody isn't talking about this. Because it's a big deal. And it's important. And look, the idea of hate speech, it's like, it doesn't, you know what? Forget about that. Let it happen. Let people say what they want to say. Because same thing with beliefs and weird things. It's like, look, I don't like that people tell people that there's a God that hates homosexuals and wants them all to die, but it's your right to be able to say that, even though I don't like it, and even though I am offended by it, and even though I think it's despicable, and that you're despicable for saying it. I'm going to defend your right to say it, because I believe, if anything, I believe that we all have to be able to say whatever the hell it is we want to say, because when you get rid of that, that's it. Then nobody gets to say anything, or only certain people gets to say certain things in a certain way, and magical words become norm. No. No to all of that. Okay, so that was me saving the world. This is, I guess, a long version of talking points, which nobody cares about. But on the upside, you didn't have to see my face. Post your comments, questions, complaints below. Be a Patreon if you want. I don't have my list of Patreons, so I can't read it off for you right now. But this isn't an edited video, so it technically doesn't count for that. What else? Unless and until we have a logically coherent argument, we must continue to be skeptical of the conclusions. Watch, I'm going to end this. There's going to be all these questions on the video, and I didn't even notice. Oh, well. Take care. Peace out. Peace works. Use it. I don't know. Lobsters exist.